All right, welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Mama Mindset, and it's actually episode 101. I wanted to kick it off with a bang, but before we get into all of that, the reason why I started this show is just as a first time mom, I found myself in the position where I actually did do a lot of research prior to having my daughter. And then my daughter got here, and I was like, okay, what the hell? And I realized that I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. So I was like, okay, how am I going to surround myself with as much information as possible? And also, like, it would be nice to have like some cool mom friends too. So I came up with the idea of talking to 1,000 moms. That is our first goal. And so today we take the first step in our journey of learning, which is one of our goals, educating ourselves, and then hopefully building a safe space where it's okay if you're a first time mom, I don't know, second time mom, right? And you still don't have the answers to this. That's cool. We're going to have experts on our show like today to help us through it. So without further ado, let me tell you a little bit more about today's guest. Okay, she's a certified sleep consultant who got her start as a night nanny in college while studying and competing internationally in Taekwondo. Spending nights with the people she was helping out, she realized how much she loved helping families navigating those early sleepless months. At first, she learned everything hands-on, but over time, she started wondering if cried out was the only option for parents who wanted their baby to sleep through the night. She decided to dig deeper, take a leap, and become a sleep consultant so she could help families with more personalized, supportive approach. She says it's been an incredibly rewarding career. We're going to find out more about that. And let's get into it. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Aldana.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're just happy to have you here. I feel like sleep is really the number one thing on, especially as a new parent. We're like, how can we get this kid to sleep, right? And so,
Right.
right? And it's just like, I feel like, when you're an adult and you don't have any kids, it's not something you consider. And then you get a child and you're like, what in the world is going on? Well, I know part of it is as a newborn, the circadian rhythm is off, right? But why do you think parents struggle so much with sleep?
Well, I think the main reason is because there's so much information out there. Like your mom can tell you one thing, and then your friends have a different experience, and they are all sharing, and I think that's great. But also sometimes we need to filter that information and like also live through our own experience. So I feel like internet is a big part of it. There's so much information, and we don't really know.
Yeah, I think it is kind of like a big, like, I don't know. And then also, it's like, okay, well, this expert says this is right. This other expert says this is right. So I think as a mom, for me, when it comes to information, I'm like trying to decipher what is correct. In addition to that, like, what is best for my child. Because everything that you hear on the internet may not actually be the best method for your child. And so the hot topic is always sleep training, right? Like, what does sleep training mean? There's this variation. So, what is your definition of sleep training?
I always tell parents, or at least the way I work, sleep training is not putting your baby in the crib, closing the door, and just like see in the morning. That's not what it is for me. For me, it's establishing a good foundation, right? Like there's a lot of families who like do contact sleeping and then they have a hard time breaking it. Like we work on that. We work on age appropriate schedules. We work on where the baby is at, because another misconception that families have is like sleep training means like your baby's not going to feed at night, and reality is like some babies still need to feed. I take clients with babies as young as 12 weeks old, and I always tell them like right away, like probably your baby's not ready to sleep a 12-hour stretch. Like if they are, amazing, but if they are not, we're still going to feed them. So it's just a little bit of like age appropriate schedule, feeding more efficiently during the day. Like if we can get those calories during the day, then that's great. They don't need as many feeds at night. And obviously learning how to sleep independently without like, sleeping on mom or like relying on being bounced to sleep.
Okay, so then I would ask, my follow-up is, do you find that there's a difference between breastfed parents and bottle-fed parents when it comes to sleep training? Does one or the other have ease, or is it kind of evened out?
It really depends. I feel like for moms who decide to breastfeed, sometimes it's just easier to nurse your child to sleep, and that makes it kind of harder for them to fall asleep independently. When babies are bottle feeding only, like they have to get up, get a bottle ready, then they feed the baby. It's kind of like it takes a little bit more time, so baby's not necessarily feeding to sleep, but it's not necessary because they are breastfeeding. It's just because it takes less time and the baby knows that the breast is available right away.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. What do you think is the appropriate age to start sleep training your kid?
Well, it really depends on when the family feels ready, because this is a process that where you involve the consultant, like the consultant is there to help you and kind of like coach you, but the parents are doing all the work and it's exhausting. Like, you know how being sleep deprived is, and it just takes so much energy. With the methods I work with, like you're always comforting your baby. So the first few nights feel tough. So it depends on when do you feel ready to do it, and also it's about the expectations. Like babies as young as 3 months old might still need a feed, so I tell the parents, like, if you want to sleep train, that's great, your baby will sleep longer stretches and can fall asleep independently, but he might still need the 1 a.m. feed. And I'm not going to tell you not to feed your child. But for older babies who might be ready to sleep through the night, there might be a little bit more of tears involved just because they are so used to their routines, and breaking habits is difficult. Even if you're offering support, they will resist the change.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So if you had to say, let's say, a sweet spot to start introducing like a bedtime routine and then maybe the early process of sleep training, around what age would you suggest based off of your experience?
So bedtime routine is something that you can start from week one. It's great because like baby knows what to expect. Like you can start with just like bath and a book and go to sleep. Babies kind of get used to a routine and they thrive with routines, which is great. So you can start introducing that as early as week number one. You can also work on resolving day-night confusion by exposing them to natural daylight and trying to have proper wake windows. And again, it's not strictly sleep training, but it sets a good foundation for whenever the baby's ready to sleep train.
Okay, that makes sense. And so, do you think that, early on, maybe when you're working with parents, something you identify as maybe there's not a bedtime routine like in place? Like what does that look like? What's a good bedtime routine?
I would say an average bedtime routine should take you anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. Bath sometimes is not part of the routine just because some parents can give their kids a bath every day, and that's okay. So after that, you just do pajamas. I always recommend that if you do a feed, you do it as the first step of the routine so baby don't get used to like feeding to sleep. Books is really good. Even if they don't know what's going on, like they remember, like they see a book and they know, like, you know what, it's bedtime. It's time for me to go to sleep. They might not create this association right away, but after some time, like they know, and it just makes the process easier.
Oh, that makes sense. I noticed that at least before I started doing sleep training, it was just easier to get her to go to sleep when I fed her to sleep. But the problem that caused ended up kind of bottlenecking. She was having some stomach tummy issues, and so if she didn't burp, it made it 10 times worse. Like at a certain point in the day, it was just catching up, and then she would have like these gas attacks. So that's interesting. Got into like our version of sleep training. That is kind of like how I start my routine with her. I feed her, and then we change her, give her like I'm gonna say like a light massage with like some Vaseline that's safe for kids, and then we read a book. She has kind of like her sleep sack on. We put that on, and then she knows it's time for bedtime. I'll take her into the room, then I sing to her for a little bit, and then I place her in the crib, and then she dozes off to sleep. So that has been working, I would say, the majority of the time. She's only 3 months though. So if I had to give a grade, right, out of like 7 days, I'm going to say 5 out of 7 is really solid. The other two, we got a little fuss going on. So I don't know. Do you think that's something that just gets better with age, or is it just doing it consistently every day?
Yeah, I think consistency takes you places.